58 points was once the top. 58 points was once the gap at the top of the championship between Red Fire and George Up Williams, who hadn't done a race yet in Tier 2. Then once he returned, he started winning. And guess what? The gap is now in single digits between Red Fire Tiger, the championship leader, and championship contender George Up Williams. Singapore last week cut Red Fire's gap from 20-ish points down to single digits. And we could see the same happen tonight if Red Fire Tiger does hit trouble like he did in Singapore. No sprint race this time, but we have a lot to get through, and we have a lot that can happen here in Imola. We last raced here in Season 11 when it was the wet conditions. So if that's something to say about what tonight could be, that will be a fun one. Nonetheless, I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles, and alongside me tonight is the Tier 3 Ferrari driver and fellow American, fellow New Yorker, in fact, Polish Hammer. It's good to have you. Make sure your audio's included.
Yes, sir. It is included. I'm ready to see some good racing here in Tier 2.
Absolutely. And you know what? The interesting thing, just like Tier 3, your tier, with this tier, Tier 2, that we have is we have a championship battle at stake. And guess what? This one, just like Tier 3, could very well go to the final race. The difference with this battle in Tier 2 compared to your tier, Polish Tier 3, Tier 3, the championship lead has changed hands quite a bit between Turbo and Uri. And those two will move up to Tier 2 next season, along with two new others, Ardell and Goatley. We'll get to that later on in the evening. But the interesting thing about this championship battle is George Up Williams started off the season originally being graduated from Tier 3 and having to sit out the first few Tier 2 races because of the fact that his actions from Texas 2 seasons ago got him a very, very big hefty penalty. And some could even say he's lucky he's still here. But he came back from a gap, 58 points back after missing 3 races. Red Fire has been extremely consistent. But lately, George has put the pressure to him. Like we said, the difference with this battle compared to Tier 3 is we're not seeing it change hands a little bit. But we're seeing that gap, quite a large gap, actually at one point it was, come down very, very fast. This race could change that once again, and it actually could see the first championship lead change between non-teammates. We had Vodka, who won round 1, lead the championship at first, but Red Fire's been extremely consistent, not as of recently. So Polish, I think we're looking at quite a good Grand Prix considering the championship circumstances, and heck, even Mercedes could win the Constructors as well tonight if they really dare do so.
Yeah, we're in for a good race here. It's interesting to see how Red Fire is going to come back because he does have a quali ban for today, so that is playing well into George's favor to possibly take the championship lead.
That is very true. Red Fire is one of 2 drivers who have a qualifying ban for tonight. Blue Gagi also got one after multiple incidents last week in Singapore. Remember, Blue Gagi, he won the sprint and did not finish well in the race. He got pole for the race, in fact, but it seemed like after that first pole on merit, he has really kind of not had it go his way, at least when the pressure got to him. It's weird with Gagi. He is one of the drivers who could make an upset last-ditch title charge at Red Fire and George, assuming something happens. And really, last week should have been the race that he made the title charge at George and Red Fire, but it wasn't. If he did not pit late in the race with Kentucky and had won the race over George, very well we could see this title have 3 contenders at the front of our field, but we do not. That's not what has happened. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So let's tell you, Imola, the last time we were here, we had a first-time winner, and we also had quite the wet race, in fact. We went from being dry at first to wet at the end, and we also saw a championship clinch here back in Season 11. We will not see the Drivers' Championship clinch tonight, but we could see the Constructors. Mercedes lead McLaren by 58 points. Ferrari still have a slim chance, 90 points back, and Red Bull and VCarb might be eliminated from championship contention tonight. Red Bull has won, I think, a total of 9 or 10 Constructor Championships in Tier 2. It's insane the amount they've won. They are not as well this season as they have been in seasons past. And with Goggy having the qualifying ban, Goatley making his Red Bull Tier 2 debut. He finished on the podium for the first time last week in Tier 2. He will have to keep up the streak of poles in a row for Red Bull if they want to do so tonight. They have 5 poles in a row currently. So let's run you down, since we were just talking about the qualifying bans, let's run you down with some penalties, headlines, and changes for the tier and in general. We already know Redfire and Goggy have a qualifying ban. SV is the only other driver that has a listed penalty. He is not able to race in RPL anymore. That may change throughout time. I mean, they're going to reevaluate that in 2 months, I've heard, but who knows? And just like Season 11, we do have some rain. This is for qualifying, though. We'll check the race later on. With that being said about SV, he raced Tier 2 last week, so this is why we are mentioning this compared to him being full-time Tier 3. So, Redfire is moving up to Tier 1 next season. He will be in the Williams for Season 12 F1, which will be Tier 2's 15th season, in fact. So, now to the contracts. Night Owl, full-time for Williams, Season 14 and Season 15, this season and next season. He's in the Aston Martin tonight. He is an F2 winner, by the way. So, welcome along to F1 Cars, Night Owl. Sam Gino, also known as Kimmy, is going to change from the Haas to the Ferrari next season. Because of that change, Torn Penguin is going to change from the Sauber to the Haas for next season. Matt Zuvo, who is in the Williams tonight, he is in the Williams for the remainder of the season, but the Aston Martin full-time for next season. Jake Bandy is in the Alpine for next season. Foles, a part of that same academy, got demoted to a reserve role due to lack of attendance. And you can already see these are tricky conditions the drivers are out on. We'll get to that in a moment, as we have already mentioned. Wavy has transferred from the Merc Academy to the McLaren/Alpine Academy. He is full-time for the remainder of the season in the McLaren, and he returns to a top car at the track he first got a podium at in Tier 2 is only 12 seasons ago. Anyways, he will help them in the fight for the Constructors. Turbo, Tier 3 title contender, is in the V-Carb for next season full-time. J&T was a Red Bull Academy assistant. He is no longer a Red Bull Academy assistant. That changed after last week's Tier 2 race, and I'm just going to say it right away before anything else we talk about. Speaking of assistants, they will actually be a big key player for next season compared to what they are right now. It's not that they're useless right now, or at all, but they will definitely help out a lot more next season because of the fact F2 is going to merge with F1 academies. That is very big. We will talk about that a lot more tomorrow for F2. Trat Racer, full-time for Sauber next season. And our last thing besides our loans and drivers missing, which we'll get to mid-qualifying since we're getting laps started, Goatley, welcome to Tier 2 next season. He's one of 4 drivers from Tier 3 to move up to Tier 2. I know he's been a rival of yours in the past, Polish, but, you know, with the performance recently in Tier 3 and also the first podium last week in Tier 2, I mean, you got to be at least happy for him to see that. That is a good sight to see, and he's also making his Red Bull debut tonight. He's full-time V-Carb next season.
I am happy for Goatley. You know, I've got nothing against him personally. Obviously, we've had a few run-ins in the past, but, you know, I've got nothing against him as a person.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see him striving as a Tier 2 driver next year, and I'm excited to see what he can do.
Absolutely. We've got laps starting. Torn Penguin is the driver I'm riding on board with, and I believe it was NRM KVS in this car. This race 3 seasons ago, and there is Blue Goggy serving his qualifying ban. I'm going to ask the drivers what the rain looks like for the race, but Polish, that is super big news. You've driven an F2 before. F2 merging with the F1 Academy side of things. That means instead of there being 5 academies for F2, there'll be 4. It'll be the same as the F1 academies like it was, well, next season will be season 21, meaning it'll be 4 seasons since that last happened.
Yeah, it'll be nice. It's a nice little kind of condensing it so there's not much. You don't have to deal with so many team principals and so many academies everywhere and just all that. But it'll be a nice little, you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
yeah,
not as
no,
crazy,
absolutely.
I guess you could say.
Ardell says it's a dry race. Well, he mentioned that in the chat before he went out on track to set the benchmark time. Penguin slots in behind, and we have more drivers coming. Foles, a reserve. Remember, he got demoted to a reserve role after missing last week's race. IVR Flair is making his debut, Invade says. That would be correct. He is in the Kick Sauber tonight alongside Woodha. Flair will cross the line, and he'll be third fastest of the 5 who set times. Leon Miner's a full-time Tier 3 driver. He's in the Aston tonight. Foles is a reserve in the Alpine. Ardell's on loan. He's on deck for the Williams slot. And Matt Zuv, I believe I've seen his name before. He says it's his debut, but I'm pretty sure when looking back at results, we've seen his name pop up either in F2 or Tier 2 once or twice at least. I want to say a Singapore race would be the one. But if it's not his debut, it's his return tonight. So that's worth a mention. And something to also mention for the sake of the constructors. Wavy and McLaren to help them. And Lennon and the Mercedes to help them as well. Look at that. Night Owl and Goatley make up the top 2 spots. Some debuts tonight. Debut for Red Bull and debut in Tier 2.
That was confusing. We had Leon stopped in Sector 2, just letting the cars go by. He looked like he might have spun out.
It was this race in Tier 3 Leon did in his RPL return just last season. And also it was this race in Tier 3 Polish. I don't know if you were here at the time. I don't think you were. I think this was one of the last races before you joined in. This race in Tier 3, we had track limit penalties all over. Every single driver that finished the race, which there was only, I think, 2 or 3 retirements, had track limit penalties. That will be a big talking point tonight because everyone knows around this circuit the track limits are broken.
Absolutely, yeah. And one place that seems to be a big factor when it comes to track limit penalties is that chicane going into Sector 3. That's going to be a big place for those track limit penalties. And
that's where Polo God is coming through. I'm going to ride on board the Ferrari driver. Polish Ferrari driver in Tier 3. Why not? Let's give Ferrari some action for at least the start of qualifying. Polish, you just saw Polo God invalidate right there to start Sector 3. It will be a very tricky place. All of the chicanes, whether it be Aqua Minerale or anything like that, there's so many famous corners around this circuit where you can invalidate. Villeneuve in 5 and 6, Tamburello. It's amazing how many places you can invalidate around the circuit. And one other thing I did not mention, Zora, a full-time Tier 3 driver, well, not full-time Tier 3 driver, but a Tier 3 driver is racing in the RB. So a lot of Tier 3 drivers have come in to kind of make up for some of the poor attendance we've had recently. And these conditions do look like they're going to be wet the whole way through during qualifying. So I really think we're going to see some guys go out for second runs without having to make a trip to the pit lane. And Wavy Knife goes 4th fastest. McLaren look quite neat there up in 3rd and 4th. They need to gain points on Mercedes in order to stay alive really for the constructors. I mean, they're going to mathematically have a chance if they even get beat by Mercedes by 20 or 25 points tonight. But realistically, they definitely need to outscore Mercedes.
George goes top of the boat. Wow, what a flyer. 124.6. Absolutely flying out there for George APL Williams. ALP Williams, sorry.
And that's what I mean. You know, we're going to see drivers repeat laps out here, have enough fuel to do more in these wet conditions. Usually, in a situation like this in the wet weather, as we have 13 drivers not complete laps, only Polo God missing. Goatley goes fastest now on the inters, in fact. So the inters maybe look slightly better. I was just going to say with George, he did a lap and then did a lap again. I think maybe he recharged if he didn't do it 2 in a row, but he did not make a trip to the pit lane. So we will see this happen just based on the fact that it is quite wet out there and it's not dying down anytime soon. But is it probably the intermediate tire Polish, you think, that will be the benefactor right now in this session based on what we're seeing with Goatley? Lennon, Penguin improved, by the way?
I believe it could be. Obviously, Goatley has put down a time that was 5/10 quicker on the inters. I was just about to talk about it before Goatley put that lap down. I was going to say it could be inters weather. The rain might not be dying down, but there is going to be a dry line on that track that you could maybe take to get away with the inters, and it looks like Goatley has put those inters to good use.
I think what Night Owl just did is he did a lap early on, recharged, and is now on another one because he is finding time. I mean, the track conditions very well could improve slightly, but that does not mean it's going to be dry enough for dry tires in the session. You already see Ardell making a switch to the intermediate tires. Polo God pulls out the way, and I really feel for him because he is invalidated twice now, at least that we know of. He could have invalidated more than that. And speaking of invalidations, Night Owl is the most recent one that we know of to pick up an invalidation. That is going to be really a very impactful thing when it comes to tonight's race, whether it be due to your qualifying lap, track limit warnings itself. It could even decide the victory. It's happened before here. In fact, originally before penalties were applied, the top 3 in Imola in the F1 race was decided by less than 2/10. So we very well could see someone win on track, not actually take the victory. It almost happened with Leo Lund in Tier 1.
Trying to get a good view of someone getting on the lap here.
Polo, I'll have you cover this. We're coming through the sector split now, and he has kept it on the track this time. The Irishman.
Polo can just keep it on the track. He can put down a good lap. I know he can. He has the pace to do it. And it looks like we got a lot of people switching to the inters now. Over half the field sitting on the inters now.
So I think Polo God's goal here should be just get a lap in at least, understand where you're at compared to the drivers, and then go to the intermediate tires. I think you at least should do a lap before getting to the inters from his standpoint.
Absolutely. As we see him going through.
Good.
I was going to say, as we see him going through, and he did not invalidate this time in the chicane, so that's good. He can get a lap in.
Leon Miner trolling us by
going
to the soft tires briefly. I did see that. Nonetheless, for Polo, he does have some good history around Imola in the past. He does have a top 5 finish here for Alfa Romeo back in F1 2021. That was during Crashgate in Season 5 F1. Polo God goes fourth fastest. And
beautiful lap.
I'll tell you right now, Polish, I know you won't be Academy teammates at all those separate tiers with him next season, but you know, he is a very fast driver. Oh, Kicksauber almost blocked his teammate there. I was just going to say, yeah, flare invalidated. Oh boy, that might be troubling later on. I was just going to say, with Polo, he's a very talented driver. He's had victories before in RPL. RPL F2 is one of the notable ones that I can recall. He's never had one in F1. He's had podiums in F1. He's had podiums in Tier 2. Oh, the only one coming here, and Ardell gets hit with a track limit violation. I was just going to say about Polo, based on how his season has went, he cannot wait to get out of this car. This Ferrari is a nightmare for him. He's going to McLaren next season, by the way, and that will take Wavy Knife's place.
Oh my god, I'm watching Flair Tokyo drift around the corners. That was an incredible save by him.
I thought it was the Kicksauber near the Ferrari right there, because it was Woda who was coming out on track and almost collided with Flair earlier on. I thought there was something going on there. So, the only guys not in inters is Polo God, who's coming back to the pit lane now, and Woda, who's out on track. George Alp Williams, I'm going to have you go to him now, Polish, and you can cover this lap. 0.3 of an improvement from the McLaren, and also from the title contender here. Let's see what the Tier 3 champion can do.
George looking to take pole from Goatley to find 0.5 on this lap to do it.
Ooh.
Slides a little bit coming out of that corner there. That's going to be a corner where you're going to see a lot of chaos right there.
Yeah, and sometimes in the wet you can slide in like that and get away with it, but not always is that the case. 0.9 of an improvement. Danny has finally joined us. He was in the same league race. Red Fire is in, so expect Red Fire to join in a few moments' time. Red Fire does have that qualifying ban. Here he is. Yeah, right? George Alp Williams has 2 more corners to go. They're both left-handers. Or, sorry, 2 more braking zones to go. This is technically a corner right here. And Turbo has joined us. We're going to see pole from George Alp Williams.
123.1.
Look at that.
Absolute flyer right there from George.
Leon is on a lap. Matt invalidated. Uriah is here. We have quite a few drivers joining in late. Let's see who else we have out on track. We got Wavy Knife. Wavy Knife got a podium here in the pass and also was contending for an F2 win here in the pass. George's teammate is up by 0.6 in the first sector. And you've got to wonder, you know, do you sit here and save, really, a set of inters if it's raining in the race like Goggy suggested, which Ardell said it isn't. Goggy said it is for a few portions of it.
We're getting some conflicting.
Yeah, I was going to say, Wavy just invalidated, though. I was going to say, do you sit here and save a set of inters, or just sit here and really put more fuel on the car so you run on the same set of inters and go out for 2 laps, go for 1, recharge, go for another one? By the way, we just had improvements for Foles, Ardell, and I believe Lennon does some good efforts up there. But yeah, what do you do in that situation?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to just keep an inter tire just in case. When I see myself going out on wet quali, I see myself doing like maybe 4, maybe 5 laps at a time, because you can just steadily improve each and every lap. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to just keep a set of inters just in case it does decide it wants to sprinkle a little bit of God's tears on the track at the end of the race.
And I'll tell you right now, based on what we've seen, Goatley goes wide, and he's going to abandon that lap. That was trouble for him. Red Fire does serve the qualifying ban, so we have everybody who had the qualifying bans serving those. Uri, by the way, is in here for V-Carb. Turbo in for Alpine. They were in the same league race with Danny and Red Fire, so I just want to notify people on that aspect. Lennon goes fastest for Mercedes. We had Goatley on a lap originally. He backed off. Let's see who else we have.
Wavy just came out of Sector 1. I was going to say, Wavy just came out of Sector 1 9/10 up, so he couldn't be in for a flyer here.
Matt has gone to 9th, by the way, while that was happening. It's going to really matter who gets the last lap in and who is last on the track with the rain dying down the way it has. Obviously, we know it's enough for intermediate tires, but we will continue to see track improvements. Quite mad as there goes Night Owl, the next Merc Academy car to go fastest. Wavy Knife was improving 9/10 in the first sector, you said. How much is it in the second sector, I wonder?
It was a 1.5 improvement.
So the track is ramping up.
You can see the dry line starting to form right there.
Yeah, second fastest from the McLaren. And if there's anybody to have home heritage, the most of anybody, we don't have anybody having home race, but Wavy Knife would be the closest one to that here. Nonetheless, Night Owl has backed off, and he's getting out of the way. He's going to charge up for a final lap, a flying one there. George Williams is now coming out of the pit lane. This is on a new set of inters. This is his freshest set, and also the lowest he can go in the fuel to try and go attack for pole position. Goatley went back out on a lap. He invalidated. Polo God is back out on track. He'll start one. And yes, you're seeing that correctly from what Invade said in the Twitch chat. When Sam Steed got a podium here for AlphaTauri, that was the same race George won, and that was the same race that Polo God got a podium in the Haas for back 5 seasons ago here in Imola. So we have quite a history with wet running, with underdog finishes, and also first-time podium sitters or first-time winners here. Lennon is crossing. He'll start a final flying lap. There's so much to watch. Right now, I'm going to watch and find out if all of our cars will get to the line in time. We will have everybody get to the line in time to start final laps. So, we're going to see the checker flag start waving about a minute time, and Zora has invalidated. That is unfortunate. We have an improvement.
That same corner, that chicane coming into Sector 3. I'm telling you, man.
And RPL Savage giving us some news that he'll be coming back. He's one of our OG members, so good to see there, by the way. Well, let's find out from our top cars who's on a lap right now, or really starting one. Night Owl is starting one. Wavy Knife is starting one. Lennon is up by a 10th in the first sector. Let's watch Lennon since he is up on the times. Chat, we've got 12 of you watching, and about 7 more than that racing. Give us your predictions here for pole position. Danny has retired from the session. He will not get a lap in. So that's 3 big name cars that will be starting in the last 3 spots. Lennon is up by 5/10. But the trouble for him here is the fact of the matter that he will not be one of the last cars crossing the line for a final flying lap. Polo God sneaks in a lap there at the end and goes second fastest. If he has enough battery to spare, he could go for another one, but he does not. Checker flag will wave when Lennon crosses, and he'll be the first one we watch cross for pole position. Which driver is going to take it here tonight in Imola? Lennon's got it right now, but can he maintain that? We've got other cars crossing. We've got Matt and the Williams and Ardell. There goes Foles fastest. Matt is next. He invalidated. Woodda invalidated. Flair in his debut invalidated. So many drivers are picking up invalidations here to finish their laps. Ardell is one of our next ones, but I'm going to go with Goatley here, who could get onto pole position improvement by 1.2 in the middle sector. We've got a car crossing. That is Turbo. He could not complete the checker flag. He invalidated. Goatley just misses out on pole. Red Bull will not get 6 poles in a row. Next across the line is Night Owl. He boxes. Wavy Knife would have just taken pole position, but he got a track limit deletion. George Williams takes pole position. It's a 21-2. Will he keep it, though? Now becomes the question. Ardell is 9th. Penguin is down on the time. It's going to be George Williams on pole position. at a time he needs it most. It is the lap he needed most as well. 4th pole for George. And it's his
9
first
tenths too.
since season
Absolutely
9.
incredible.
That's a 5-season drought he just broke there, George. And look at the margin to go with it. 8 tenths there at the top of our board. We did not catch much of George's lap, but the fact of the matter is George Williams was one of the last cars on the racetrack, so he timed it perfect. Look at this, though, at the top of our board. It is 2 different academies. It's an Academy 1-2 in the right way. It's not a McLaren 1-2. It's an Academy 1-2.
How had Alpine in second?
Pulls. Yeah, good effort there. George Foles, Goatley. That's the top 3. Goatley in his Red Bull debut qualifies 3rd. And look at this. We've got 6 different teams inside the top 6. Lennon, Night Owl, Polo God, Wavy, Uri, Ardell, and Wood round out our top 10. Nice effort from Zora. Nice effort from Matt there. They got the laps in. The guys who didn't are Turbo, Goggy, Danny, and Redfire. That will definitely be a crucial part for the start of this race. Those guys trying to play catch up. So, Ardell says, did not think I would get P9, but we take it. Yeah, congrats. That's a really good effort. That's both Williams inside the top 12. Wow. How often do you see that happen?
Not very often. I'm not sure. I was looking at one of the Aston Martins at Night Owl. It seemed like he may have gotten impeded on his last quali lap by one of the V carbs. I'm not sure if he was on an in lap or what, but there was some contact going into the last chicane there.
That could be very possible. It's a dry start, and it is a dry race. So we're going to see probably a simple one-stop with the hard to mediums or medium to hards. What do you expect here on the start, Polish? We've got George on pole, and we've got Redfire practically last. 2 different areas for our championship contenders. I've heard Goggy talk about who sits 4th in the championship. Technically, net P3 with Vodka missing as many races as he has. You know, Redfire and Goggy talked about working together to get up to the front here. Do they need to? I know they're championship contenders, technically. I know Goggy knows it's a very slim chance for the championship, but does he need to? And what do we expect on the start between the championship contenders with 2 different ends on the grid?
Well, I think George's mission is just going to be get as far away from the pack as humanly possible, whilst the McLaren is still trying to get through traffic. The McLaren's going to be very, I would say, aggressive. Obviously, he's not going to want to damage his car. But I expect him to be very aggressive on the start, taking over cars. I would imagine we would see the McLaren in the top 10 by the time the first lap's over. Because you're going to see full-on chaos. As long as he can get through the turn 1 Imola chaos, I think he'll be okay.
Less than 20 seconds remain until lights out. We've got F1 Shorts in chat. Welcome along. We also did get a message in chat talking about Night Owl did get impeded, so you were correct on that end. So that is good to know. Last time we raced in Imola, we got a first-time winner. Could we see the same happen tonight? Here we come for the 5 red lights for the Grand Prix. It is time to kick things off with just a few races remaining in Season 14, Tier 2. The 5 lights go on, and the 5 laps go out quite quickly, in fact. George Williams got a decent start. Foles slots in behind, and will have a ton of slipstream down to Turn 2, the first braking zone. He will not go for the move on the teammate. Now we've got side-by-side action for 5th place. Polo God is getting aggressive with Tier 3 championship leader Uri for 6th place here. The 2 Italian teams are racing it out. It's the V-Carb getting the better of the Ferrari, and it looks to be a clean start for the most part, but we get to the second chicane where that all can change. The kick Sauber gets wide, and there goes Redfire Tiger and Goggy, who had trouble with Penguin in front. They had to avoid him, and they got collected in it. That's super big for 2 drivers who need a lot of help in this championship fight. George Williams, though, it's a dream start. It's a 2nd gap already.
Like I was saying, George is just going to try and get away from the pack as humanly possible, and that is exactly what he is doing, pulling up to a 2nd lead on that Alpine.
You saw Ardell have to slot in behind Polo God. He wanted to have a go there at the Irishman down into the chicane, down into Sector 3, but it was not happening. We got Goatley putting some pressure on the Alpine Academy driver of Foles. Foles is already backing up this pack, and he's got an accordion effect happening behind him because nobody can go anywhere. George Williams leads the first lap. Uriah's gained 2. Leon Minor's gained 2. So have Danny and Red Fire, but Red Fire didn't gain as much as he really could have there. Goggy has lost places. Zora now has lost places. Wavy has 2. Penguin, the biggest loser, he was the one who spun around. And you saw Goggy and Red Fire have to take evasive action. And Leon Minor had a little slip up down there at turn 2. All is good there. No harm whatsoever, but definitely not the start we would have expected there from Red Fire and Goggy, who needed to gain places. They said they were going to work together. Now they really definitely have to.
You wonder if the Alpine is playing the team game here, just absolutely just backing up that pack to let George get out to this lead.
That is possible, because if George makes a mistake, which we have seen happen a few times, he is now in pursuit of just pulling away. Look at this. 3 seconds is the gap. Foles is just being a pain in Goatley's rear right now. Look at that. That little stack up there as we get the chicane. Some drivers ran in the back of one another, and you can see what that was doing. Ardell collision! That's the Sauber of Wood, who tried to make the move, went off right there. That's big contact, and also we have a crash at the back. That's Leon Minor, who is also in the grass, mowing the lawn there. It's a 4-second gap at the end of lap 2. That means 2 seconds per the first 2 laps with what Foles is doing for the teammate here. And DRS is enabled. Here we go. Down to turn 1. 3 abreast. The Mercedes goes onto the grass. And there goes the Aston having to take evasive action. So much happening down to turn 2.
Goatley wanted to make that move going into the final sector, but Foles is just dumping the ERS to stay in front of this pack. Absolutely beautiful teamwork from him.
We see in the chat, Invade, team principal Ferrari, not happy with what happened there with Ardell, and there's another collision down at the corner in this train. Night Owl was the one being affected there. Last time down at that area, it was Ardell and Wavy, who I was just going to mention, got involved in a little bit of contact. This time, it's Night Owl getting the worst end of things, and I really think your point is true about Foles. It either could be he has on a wet setup, maybe he thought the same thing as Goggy with the wet race happening, or it really could be he's just backing up this train and really trying to get them
the good thing about this,
get angry.
This is a really benefiting Danny and Redfire, who were caught up in that first incident on lap 1. They have now caught this second pack and are going to try and start making some moves.
It's also big for Blue Goggy, who needed it. He was 2 seconds behind Redfire. That's not the case anymore. You see a lot of cars who got affected there early on. Redfire, that's crucial. Look at that. A penalty to his name. That will be a big talking point throughout this whole event. Goatley, Lennon, and maybe Uri making the move on Foles. Here we go. Down to turn 2. Uri shoves Foles out, and Foles does the same back. That's similar to what we saw in F2 with Paul Aaron, and Foles does be kind to Uri and give up the places. He also gives up another one, too, to Night Owl, with that being said. So Foles, who led this train moments ago, now is down in P7. Lots of stuff is happening. Look at this train further behind with how many drivers are getting squirmishy. Wood's got a penalty. That's down in last place. He made a pit stop when he got in trouble on the opening lap. Some of the other drivers who look like they've lost touch with this train would be Zora, Turbo, and obviously Leon Minor had what happened to him. He was the only one to start on softs out of anybody. Most of the drivers starting on the medium compound tire. Lennon now leads this train. Goatley's now third, and Polo God, a previous podium finisher in Imola, is down in P4, or up in P4. His teammate Danny is now ghosted inside of Blue Goggy here at the back of the field. He's another one, to your point, Polish, who needed to make the moves.
Yeah, he's finally starting to make the moves here. I'm liking what Night Owl's doing. Start on the hard compound, getting the hard compound start out of the way, and he is still sticking with that front pack. So maybe that reverse strategy to what seems like everyone else is doing might pay off. So he goes for 5th place here on Uri.
Red Fire, Night Owl, 2 Merc Academies make moves there, and now Lennon has someone make a move on him. He is down to P3 further back. Torn Penguin and Danny also trade places. Same with Flair and Matt. Matt's now been overtaken by 2 different drivers, and Red Fire is now up to 9th right here. Look at the positions gained from Red Fire, the Frenchman, 10 places. The problem is he's got a penalty to spare. And a fair point you make, Invade, in the Twitch chat. You know what I'm noticing? The top 3 were in Tier 3 last season. George, Goatley, and Lennon. Good improvement.
Tier 3 coming in strong here.
George's gap is coming in strong here. 5 seconds, 5 laps in. We had a spin from the lead and contact from the lead around this time between JTK and Zatsi, two Dutch drivers back in the last race in Imola, around this point of the race. And I'll say right now, we can't have that happen for our lead due to the gap with 5.4 seconds. We could see someone spin out from their own. That'd be a self-spin from the lead, but we've had a lot of things happen in this train, so if there's any action to look out for, it's anywhere from 2nd to 15th right now, and we have another driver picking up a penalty. That is Flair. Do not expect that to be the last penalty. We're going to see a lot of track limit violations tonight in this race, and Night Owl sets the fastest lap. We got a move made now for 2nd place. Goatley gets overtaken again for the place, and Foles also on the move. He's up a place. So is Wavy. Both them got it done on Uri. Goggy up another one too.
George has got to be careful here. Look at the race director. He already has a track limits warning, so he's just got to be careful to tread lightly on those corners. He's already got a 5.5 second lead. No need to go flying into these corners here.
Especially considering the lead he has. He's got a 5.5 lead, and surely, whether it's from Wavy Knife, his teammate, and maybe in the same voice chat, or his engineers watching the stream, they will tell him as we got a crash. That is the V-Carb. That is Zora. Hitting trouble there. We got some penalties being handed out, by the way, while that was happening. I was just going to say, someone, whether it's Jack, team principal there, whether it's Wavy, the teammate who only runs 2 places in front of Redfire, they will tell him there's a penalty there. And Flair has got damage on the Kicksauber. That's the 2nd driver on this lap to run into trouble. He will have to come in and pit, and he'll definitely have to now. He's just made a mess of that corner, hit the wall, and I'm going to expect this to either be the end of this race if that was intentional. He just made a mess of that chicane, went right into the barrier. I'm not going to assume it was intentional, but he just turned right there.
He just lost the car there.
Goatley re-inherits 2nd place in this race. That's big because he has a penalty. He's got to pull a gap now. Red Fire overtakes Uri, or does he?
And Flair does retire in the pits.
Yep. Red Fire, another one.
Penalty.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And Uri.
Red Fire is saying, I'm going to get up to the front no matter what, no matter how many penalties I get.
Flair coming into box and giving up is our first retirement of the Grand Prix. That's not the debut he would have wanted, and that's very, very unfortunate from the Sauber. The Saubers run last, 18th and 19th right now. It's not the Grand Prix they would have wanted. But I'll tell you right now, you know, with the penalties being handed out, Wavy Knife is our most recent driver to pick up one. You could see some drivers who are in cars that are, I don't know, like the Alpine, like the V-Carb, even the Williams of Ardell, that are either 6th fastest or slower, end up taking really good results tonight if the penalty situation goes in their favor. And Minico, if you're watching, it's what you expected. Ardell has got a penalty.
As soon as you said his name.
Yeah, Zora
is
facing the wrong way. That's unfortunate for Zora, down now in 17th place. And
I'd like to mention, even after Goatley got past, as it looks like we have a big move for 2nd here, Lennon takes 2nd away from Goatley.
Red Fire also clears Uri. You were saying?
I was going to say, even after Goatley and Lennon both got by that Alpine, George is still pulling a gap. He had a 5.3 second gap here last lap. He is now at a 5.8 second. He is still pulling a gap. He is clearly the fastest car on track right now.
It's just not by as much as it was in the opening lap, clearly, with what Foles was doing. He was clearly making some of those drivers in this train angry. Whether it was on purpose or not, he was making them angry. And that will get in drivers' heads. They will remember that as well while racing you. And Polo God had to concede the place down there at the Villeneuve chicane to Night Owl. Danny also traded a spot with either Gaggi or Ardell moments ago. And speaking of Polo, it's a penalty to his name. This Ferrari is not one of his favorite cars compared to many F1 games ago he ran in it. It's just not going his way. And Matt's got another penalty, I believe. I believe that's another one.
The penalties are starting to stack up here.
And Zora, he's just not having a good time out there. He's got another penalty. He's spun around again.
Zora, as soon as his name gets... You got to stop saying people's names, man. Every time you say the name, they get a penalty.
Red Fire,
potato scoops.
Uri, they're both ahead of Wavy Knife now. And also, Goatley got the upper edge on Lennon. There's a trade in places for 2nd. There's a trade in places for 7th. You are exactly right about Red Fire, Polish. He's going to do everything he can to make sure those penalties do not matter at the end of this race. If he has enough pace to pull the gap, he will do it.
And I think he does. He's been absolutely flying, catching everyone in his sight.
I think the tricky thing is you just got to get out of the DRS train here. In F124, you're stuck in a DRS train for most of the race if you do not have the outright pace. And Redfire, if he can pull the gap on Uri, he can get out of that train. Luckily for Imola's cases, we only have one DRS zone. So, yeah, and also ERS does play a big factor. Polo God with a big snap in the Ferrari. He's going to lose tons of time. He's got to use the ERS to gain it back. I'm telling you, there are some drivers who do not benefit in certain cars, and Polo God this season in the Ferrari has been one of those drivers. He was in it last season as well with Dill JG, who just gets online on my screen. Nice little notification from a retired driver. But, you know, there's some drivers who do not handle well in those cars, and we're seeing it happen right now. We're also seeing the Merc Academy cars take advantage. Night Owl, Lennon, they pass Goatley for second place. Goatley has the penalty. That will be costly. Turbo has got Ardell. Is Ardell going to fight back at the corner? No, he will not. Turbo does not have a penalty. Ardell's now got another one.
It's penalties are starting to stack up. Redfire and Ardell both with 6, and multiple drivers with 3 seconds now.
Hold on. Major squeeze there. Major squeeze between Fulls and Polo. Polo has to back out. He does. But we have Leon Miner coming into the pit lane for hard compound tires.
That gap to George is starting to come down a little now. It's 5.7 from Lemon now.
It does seem like it's fluctuating quite a bit more than it was prior. I mean, that's probably a good sight. But also, that is showing that these guys overtaking each other in this train like Lennon, Night Owl, and Goatley have been doing is not making the impact it was earlier on as well when Fulls gave up the places he did. It was obviously a 4.5 gap. Now it's more, but it also had a chance of getting to 6 seconds. It's now not happening. It's not. We're not seeing it gain the gap we saw. Polo God is in. That's the first one in this DRS train. Watch out for that later on for the undercut and overcut. Night Owl does inherit second place over Academy teammate Lennon. While that's happening, Wavy Knife gets pinched under the curb by Uri, and that was a big squeeze from the V-Carb. Was that moving under braking? Was that something that could see the stewards room later for Uri?
What up for a second?
Yeah, V-Carb are looking at maintaining 5th place in the constructors over Aston Martin. Could that be a move that cost them from doing so? I mean, that'll be a big talking point. Wavy Knife in 8th has the penalty.
I think those hards are finally starting to come into play for Night Owl. He's passing Lennon for second, and he is hunting down George. He's taken 6/10 off that gap since we last saw him.
Yeah, and that's probably why Polo got pitted the lap he did. He probably noticed it before some of the other drivers did, and that may pay big dividends to him with the undercut. He does not have the car clearly under his belt to stay with these drivers, so take a gamble, go different. Turbo and Zora are the newest drivers to get in the penalty club or pick up another penalty. We've now got half the drivers in this race remaining in the penalty box. Goatley is in. He makes sure to get it in under the speed limit. He went cautious there. He didn't need to make a mistake, especially already considering he has the penalty to spare. So smart on Goatley's end. He'll be in Tier 2 next season, as we mentioned prior to starting qualifying. A few drivers will be in Tier 2 next season from Tier 3. Uri is one of them. He's up in 6th. Ardell is up in 10th. He's one of them. And the same will be said about Turbo, who's running in 9th for Alpine. In fact, it's ironic you mentioned this, Polish. You mentioned to me earlier today, besides his drive-through penalty and stewards reports, Uri does not have a penalty this season yet in Tier 3. In fact, he's the only Tier 3 driver who's moving up to Tier 2 next season who does not have a penalty, and Goatley, speaking of Tier 3 drivers, has hit trouble.
I was just going to talk about Goatley. He's putting everyone on Tier 2, on watch. He got a podium last week. He's looking for another podium this week. Looks like he's bad fast. Uri, just talking about him, gets a 3-second.
You know, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't speak. Maybe I should have no rights. And Wavy Knife.
Oh, we got to go side by side.
This is not a place usually happen often. And Wavy Knife with an up and under.
Wavy Knife takes it.
Fulls
they're
is
still
in.
side by side.
Redfire's in. These two don't pit. They'll race on to turn 2. And it's still going.
And Wavy was able to keep DRS, so that's going to stop Uri from making any sort of move in turn 1. Or is it? Oh, no.
it's kind of the reverse roles from what it was moments ago. It was Uri squeezing Wavy Knife onto the curb that time. This time, if Uri wanted to make a move, he would have been the one pushed onto the curb right there. We have lots of drivers boxing and trying to go for undercuts here, all to the hard compound tire. Remember, Night Owl is the only one who started on the hard compound tire who is yet to pit up in this front pack. Polo God is racing fulls, and he picked up his second track limit penalty moments ago. We've got 5 drivers with 6 seconds of penalties, and in total, we have got at least 10 drivers in the penalty box.
Look at Night Owl. He is just taking chunks, and I mean chunks out of that time from George. Now down to 4.3. Gained a second in about 2 laps.
The man who won an F2 Canada for Prema is really showing his fate here in RPL that he does deserve
and George
a good ride. And yeah, that's crucial. I think he needed to do that. Maybe a lap earlier would have been better, but the fact is his teammate, academy teammate, Fulls helped him out to be able to do this. And Lennon is in. Lennon joins him. Danny's going to go for a move, but we got yellow flags for their back. Who's that for? That's for Zora again. He picked up a penalty again moments ago, and now his teammate Uri is on the move.
Three
Danny's
guys
on the move. Look at that. Down to turn 2.
3 guys fit under a blanket. And Danny's got the upper hand here because he does not have a track limit warning penalty, unlike Uri and Levy.
And that could come into hand later on in this event. George comes out having a monstrous gap over the next few cars for the net lead.
That's good. George does not have to worry about anyone, any lapped cars, any slower cars around him. He can just race his race, warm up them hard tires, and get back into the lead.
The only thing I think he's going to have to worry about is a Zora, Woda, or Leon safety car. Those guys have had absolute nightmares to begin this race, and I do not see it slowing down one bit. I mean, Zora got in the penalty box multiple times. Wavy up there again for a second time.
That corner.
Woda's got 6 seconds. Leon's got 3, but all those guys have had trouble more than once to start this race, and they're down in the last 3 spots. I don't see it getting any better for them unless there's a safety car, and I hate to say it, they might be the cause of one with how their races are going. Danny pits, Wavy pits, both make sure they get it in very cautiously. I mean, a lot of the drivers seem like they've gone in underneath 40 miles per hour. It's 50 miles per hour, the speed limit. You can see how cautious they're taking it. Ardell gets a penalty, and Zora, that was the cause of yellow flags right there. He's about to get lapped.
I think everyone saw what happened in Tier 3 yesterday with Invade getting that speeding penalty and then winning the race by over 4 seconds. They do not want to be the next person to get caught up by that speeding. Especially
because the difference with Miami and Imola is the fact that track limit penalties around here are more frequent than Miami, so it will be more costly by the end of the event. So you do raise a good point by that. Speaking of some of the drivers who started at the back, Red Fire is in 7th. He's pitted. Danny just pitted. He's in 10th. Gagi is in 9th. So they will be paying big advantage to this. And actually, ironically enough, Gagi and Danny, 2 drivers who started at the back of the field, do not have track limit penalties. They are one of 5 drivers left in this event without a penalty. Zora goes into the pit lane, gets a 10-second, and retires. Luckily, that's not on track. That's a good sight to see, but an unfortunate end to his event.
As looking through the incidents here, it seems like, warnings-wise, it seems like Night Owl only has 1, and it looks like George also only has the 1 currently. So they have a little bit of breathing room.
So if they're in a position to extend and they need it at least once, they can do it. But you don't really want to take that risk unless it's on lap 32, just because you do not want to put yourself in that position to get one. And, you know, you never know. I mean, there's been some drivers who were in that train earlier on who raced quite aggressively, who could definitely see themselves go to the storage room after based on how things were. Red Fire is in proximity of Polo. Foles is hunting down Lennon. And Wavy Knife has Turbo for company. Those are the only battles right now on this circuit. And we could see more happen with Uri, Night Owl, yet to pit.
And I see what Invade's saying in the chat. Invade, at least you got a top 5. And didn't get screwed over by the game.
You know, Polish, I was going to make this point when, you know, you said you'd be on comms for tonight when I knew about it a few days ago. You know, with what Goatley is able to do in Tier 3 right now, it's definitely... Oh, Woda's retired in the pit lane. That's our 3rd retirement. Double retirement now for Kick Sauber. That's very, very unfortunate. Invade will definitely have a lot to say about that in the chat. I was just going to say, when you said you'd be on comms for this event, I was just going to say what Goatley's doing in Tier 3 right now in the V-Carb, and at points it was the Red Bull, I think once. He did maybe get one of those taken away, the podium or a good finish. It's exactly what you could be doing right now in Tier 3, if not for the bad luck, if not for the misfortunes. And, you know, knowing you have probably similar pace to Goatley at times, you're probably happy to see it for that case, that you can do it yourself.
Yeah, obviously it is, you know, racing is about skill, but it's also about luck. If you don't have luck, you're just not gonna compete. But, you know, it's nice to be in the kind of top guys where I know I have the pace to maybe compete for podiums, maybe compete for wins as well.
Ardell got a penalty a moment ago, and also there was an overtake between Redfire and Polo, you were saying.
I don't know. I completely lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll add on to that, actually. I mean, Blue Goggy right now runs a 9th, and it's interesting because a lot of the races you can use as perspective. Luck happens in racing. It either goes your way or it doesn't. If you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all, as the saying goes. But for Blue Goggy's case, I want to mention him briefly. You know, there's a lot of... Oh, Danny is now in the penalty club. That's big. That's now only 4 drivers without a penalty in this race remaining. With Goggy's case, though, it's interesting, especially with perspective, because you look at how it went for him in Vegas in F2, and even Singapore last week in the sprint in in Tier 2. He won those races, and he put up a lot of pressure against George. He also beat a few Tier 3, F2, well, F2 and champions of other tiers in the past. Tadpole, a Tier 2 champion, other race winners, Josh, a Tier 2 winner. He beat a lot of Tier 2 winners or other winners in RPL in that race. So there's a perspective to prove that Goggy can actually cope with the pressure. But there's also the perspective...
driver off.
That's Polo.
Polo God.
He's got damage. He's got damage on the side of the Ferrari. He's going to let those guys go, get out of the way, but he was running well.
Running inside the top 10 and just, I think I didn't see it. I just saw the Ferrari go flying in the background. He, I guess, must have gotten loose and tried to overcorrect it. That's my best guess as to what happened there.
Man. Redfire Tiger, another penalty to his name. That's costly. That's now 9 seconds. And Ardell, moments ago, became the first driver to get up to double digits with the track limit penalties. So, as I was saying about Goggy, it's about perspective, right? Because with him, there's arguments you could make about he cannot cope with the pressure. Look at Singapore last week. He pitted under circumstances where he could have won the race on. Maybe got penalized in the storage room nonetheless. So that's another case to make up that he could have, saying that he can't cope with the pressure. Also, he's lost podiums. He's lost chances for victories. So, you know, it is about perspective when racing. And Leon Miner has got a penalty. Polo got another one moments ago. We got a move made down to turn 2. Danny gets Blue Goggy. And there's still 3 cars behind Danny now, with that being said. And Polo God makes a change with tires. He does stay in this race. That's a good thing. Because you know what? Although he has penalties, although he got into trouble, he still can get a good result if there is a safety car to come. It's just a matter of if Turbo got a penalty.
Speaking back on Redfire here, he did put down the fastest lap of the race about 2 laps ago with a 1:16.565, proving that he does have the speed to get up to the front. It was just that quali ban really, really killed him. Imola is one of the worst places to have a quali ban because of how tight the track is and how hard it is to overtake.
And that's the interesting thing. A lot of the places we'll see overtakes happen, as that was Polo in the first sector that caused the yellow flags. It's interesting because the place, 2 penalties pop up on our screen right there. That was Matt, and I'm looking to see the other one. Redfire again. Wow, he's up in double digits now. Oh, boy. I was just going to say, it's interesting because the overtaking places, I would say, is this DRS straight, maybe the hairpin up in the first corner of Sector 2, and those last 2 braking zones. Speaking of the hairpin, will we see a move made? Uri is yet to pit. George has already. Will Uri fight this aggressively? He'll just pinch him, but quite aggressive, quite argy-bargy, but fair between the 2 of them. 2 teammates at one point in Tier 3 in the past. Foles got a penalty. That's in 5th place. And still, only 4 drivers without one. Goggy, Lennon, George, and Night Owl. Want to make matters worse, by the way, Invade, for your Ferrari Academy? Speaking about Ferrari's luck, they're the only academy to not have a car penalty free right now in this race. Sorry, Polish.
This is true. Ferrari Academy also takes up 2 of the 3 retired drivers. Obviously, both the Saubers were retired mid-race. I was going to say, I'm excited to see, as Night Owl does go into pit, as I was just about to say, I'm excited to see how this overcut is going to go and how he's going to be on the different strategy and if he can take time out of George. He's definitely got the pace to do it.
And Night Owl will come out behind this battle for P3 now that is brewing. Lennon and Fulls. Fulls closing in, but not close enough. Blue Gagi in this train, you were saying?
I was going to say, this could be Night Owl's undoing, the fact that he came out 6th place and he's going to have to pick off 4 different cars before he can get to George.
The big thing for him, even if he doesn't get to George, he can still finish on the podium in this race, and Goatley has got another track limit penalty to his name. We're just seeing the drivers violate the track limits quite a bit here, and now we have a move maybe being made between 2 former rivals, Gagi and Wavy, both now in top cars again. And, you know, a lot of patience between these two this time compared to what was 3 seasons prior. You know, I really do think we got Lennon on the podium right now. When things do cycle out, Fulls will be there. Redfire won't be due to his situation, but Night Owl will be due to his situation with the way things stand. So he could be getting a podium on his Tier 2 debut. Kind of like on his F2 debut, he got a win. And Wavy makes a mess there of the track limits in the chicane.
And he could. Night Owl is really looking strong here. Obviously, he doesn't really have to worry too much about the people in front of him. The only people he has to really worry about in front of him is Lennon and George, both penalty free right now. You got Redfire you don't got to worry about at 12, Fulls at 6, Uri at 3. And as things stand, Redfire could possibly be falling as low as 8th or 9th with his penalties. And if he keeps racking them up, he could be falling out of the points here.
Gagi's going to be the big beneficiary. He's going to gain a spot on Redfire. He's going to gain a spot on Goatley. He's going to gain a spot on Danny. And for all we know, we could see more trouble hit with other drivers and things change drastically. He'd be getting 6th place right now, the Red Bull driver, from a qualifying ban. Wavy Knife is the newest driver to come up on our race director on the top of our board and have a penalty alongside his name. It's now 9 seconds for Wavy, and he's not the only one with 9 seconds. We got
Polo
God.
Look at this battle for 3rd right here.
Yeah, look at this. 2nd place swaps hands. Uri yet to pit. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh no, I was just saying about the battle for 2nd and 3rd. Fulls all over the back bumper of Uri there, and he takes away 3rd from Uri.
Big lunge. Good move there from Fulls.
Great
How about that?
Fulls. He's going to see if he can get 2nd away from Lennon. He's going to have the DRS to do it.
Polo's
See
lap
if he
down,
dumps the
Polo
battery
pits,
a little bit.
and Polo's out. So
That
now
is
make it
3 Ferrari drivers.
the only ones left
Ferrari
are Danny
Academy
and Penguin.
drivers. Invade is absolutely
Human?
swarming in his seat right now. Seeing this right now.
Make it 5 cars in this train right now. Turbo is caught up here. He's on the gearbox of Wavy now, his Academy teammate. And that's really good to see, especially the fact of the matter that Turbo is proving he does deserve a place here in Tier 2. There's a lot of guys who do deserve a place here in Tier 2, but only so many can have it. And I think it's a really great thing to see. Mentaki, one of the drivers who were very vocal about this, and others were too. JTK, a former Tier 2 champion. Many drivers have been vocal about the fact that Tier 2's attendance has dipped. With 4 drivers moving up to Tier 2 next season, full-time from Tier 3, this is a good thing to see that we're getting more attendance from it, and these drivers are not just drivers who are in it for the sake of back markers or in it for the sake of field fillers, as you could argue someone like Leon and Zora and maybe even Wooda are here for the fun of it. And it's good to see them here. I'm not going to try to discount it, but they're not in full-time rides. Some of them are Tier 3 drivers, in fact. So, and also, speaking of people moving places, Redfire will be in Tier 1 next season, and he'll get the move made on Uri. And Leon Miner picks up a track limit penalty for, well, as you know, exceeding the track limits.
Yeah, it's good to see the attendance go up this week. Obviously, we have a lot of reserves in, but it's good to see 19 drivers. That's nothing to scoff at. It's just good to see Tier 2 finally getting the love that it truly does deserve. It's a good tier, a lot of fast drivers, good championship battle. Can't really ask for much more.
I mean, it really reminded me of Season 9 with the dip in attendance we saw, and it was not a surprise, especially considering how frustrating this game is to some. It's only the second season in this game. Uri gives up a place to Night Owl, and also moments ago, Blue Gaki got overtaken by Goatley and Danny there for a place.
Another track limit
that was
penalty
Danny and
from
Goatley,
Ardell.
excuse me. Yeah,
18 seconds now.
Yeah, that's not good. That's almost double of the next, driver in line. That's just not good. Ardell is not having fun with these brutal track limits in Imola. And you were speaking of Foles, I think, moments ago. In fact, he does not have the gap over Night Owl, but he does have the gap over Uri and the other guys behind. So he could remain third, but it's a very slim chance here. In 7 seconds, George leads Lennon by. And one thing I want to mention about George, if he wins tonight, he will take the championship lead over Redfire. And in fact, he has the most races in this tier now without a championship of anybody.
That could easily change this season.
Yeah.
If he keeps putting performances like this, I'm pretty sure George, starting from the pole, he's led every lap so far.
Yeah, except for I think the one Night Owl had, I think, which was like 2. But that's still impressive, even if it's not all of them.
Yeah, he's led almost every lap that he's been able to be at the front for where the pit cycles were not happening.
Both Red Bulls just went wheel to wheel with Ferrari and a McLaren, and they both lost places there on the main straight. Turbo is trailing Goggy by only 0.6, but he does have the penalty. Wavy does have penalties. Goatley does. Danny does. Uriah do. So that's all important when trying to realize you have Goggy who's going to overtake you. And speaking of overtaking, I know Uri will be being overtaken here quite soon. I'm interested to see, is he going to play a little game here for his academy teammate, Goggy or Goatley, and kind of catch things up here? He'll be giving Danny DRS this time if he does peel off to the pits or not. But is he going to stay out for the sake of wanting a safety car? Is he going to stay out for the sake of just, helping the teammates?
Sector 1.
Yes, Leon. Leon is off. He's back going now, but race down to turn 2. Danny has to go the long way. Goes in the grass, uses some of that for overtaking measure, and does get the move done. Now, Uri is going to pull over here, I'm going to guess. Yes, he does.
Yes, he is.
Smart move. Now he'll race Wavy. Look at that. Look at that. Wow. Exactly what we expected. Little academy teammate assistance. Wavy knife goes for a lunge, little dive bomb move. It does work, but he did disrupt the battle there with Goatley and Wavy. And I think he's going to do the same with Turbo. Hello, fellow championship rival. I'll make you go the long way around this time. Nice to see you. Goodbye.
Uri absolutely being a menace, trying to keep everyone behind him. He's down to 11th now. I wonder why Uri is dropping so bad. I don't understand. Is he on older tires than everyone else?
Hasn't pitted. He's the only one yet to pit. He's on
he
mediums,
hasn't pitted yet. I did not know that.
The fact that he's gone 25 laps on those medium compound tires, that's impressive. But he's just giving a little meet and greet to his fellow rival, just in different places.
You wonder when Uri's going to come in. He'll come in with like 2 to go, get fastest lap.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's inevitable that when he pits, he's going to go to the soft compound tire. I will tell you, in fact, if he does do that and there is a late safety car, which is possible in the next few laps.
Wavy Goatley.
What? Wavy knife. Gets the upper edge on Goatley. Inherits P7. He's had great pace, but he just has had the track limit penalties to spare, and it's been stuck in DRS, so that's not helpful at all. But to the point made about Uri, he's going to go to soft tires, but the big thing for him, Polish, is if he does get the benefit of a late race safety car here, he will stay out. I would hope he does, and he'll probably pass the guys in this train if it all works out for him. Maybe not, but he'd probably stay in 11th then, and he'll have a chance for points. The penalty situation now is alongside the driver's interval gap on our screen right now. You can see that while we take it off the tires here. We'll put it back in the tires when Uri does finally come in and make his pit stop. But now we got 5 laps to go. George F. Williams does lead. He's won here before in Tier 2. He's won here before in Tier 3. And he'll make it another one if he wins tonight. But it's an 8-second gap he holds right now over Lennon, who's being pressurized by Foles. Foles got demoted to a reserve recently and is now just bump drafting the Mercedes.
Bump drafting like this is NASCAR. Unbelievable.
It was Talladega a few weeks ago, so, Whoa! Look at that. The Aston came out of the pits and it wasn't ghosted for a second. That was Leon. That could have been troubling for Wavy and Goatley, who were having a ding-dong battle down to turn 2. Wavy hangs on, but, I mean, what's it going to matter for him? He's got track limit penalties. He's just trying to pull a gap over guys like Turbo, who could have trouble, and even Uri, who still is yet to pit. If there's a safety car, like we said, that goes his way, that's what benefits him.
Absolutely, and just looking at Night Owl here, 1.2 seconds behind Redfire. It's unfortunate that it doesn't seem the hard to medium really panned out the way that he wanted to. It's going to be 4 seconds behind the next closest driver in Foles, although he still should be in for a podium with Foles' penalties.
I'll tell you right now, though, Night Owl is not gaining the gap I thought he would. He still has Redfire to dismantle, but the fact of the matter is, if Foles races with Lennon quite aggressively here and continues to swap, but does it tactically here without costing each other time, they can pull that, Foles, he can pull that gap to make sure he has the podium still, but it is unlikely with the way things stand. Right now, he's going to need a little more. He does re-inherit second place, but Night Owl is on the back of Redfire, and I know Redfire wants to pull a 12-second gap, and I know he's in a championship race, but I would just say, pull over right now, get behind your teammate who might have pace, and if you don't, then hang on. Night Owl's got the medium compound tires. You would think that'd be a lot more faster. It's just not been. Uri finally makes a trip to the pits. And with that being said, I think we had a move maybe between Gagi and Goatley or one of them. Or maybe there was going to be, but there just wasn't. One of them backed off there come the corner. And Ardell,
another
21 seconds. Wow.
We've hit the 20 mark now. Unbelievable.
Wow.
I don't know. Do you know what the record is for most penalties in a race? Penalty time?
We had 40 seconds happen once. We've had 30 seconds happen once. We've had almost 50. I mean, we've had quite a hefty margin.
Crazy.
But for only being track limit penalties and only 3 seconds, I'm not totally sure. But I'll tell you right now. That's unfortunate. Night Owl is closing on a Redfire while we speak, and I think that was Uri picking up one too. I was just gonna say, I think for the most amount of penalties only being for 3 seconds, though, only. I think that's the most we've seen in quite a long time. Night Owl and Lennon make moves for 2nd and 4th place.
I love what Blue Gagi's doing. Sitting back in 9th, doing his own race, not getting any track limit penalties, because he knows all these people in front of him, besides maybe Danny, he's going to pass come checkered flag.
So I think for Gagi's case, compared to Redfire today, Redfire has had the outright pace compared to the two having qualifying bans, and Gagi has not had the pace, but he's had the consistency, which to me shows that next season, if he pulls off races like this and actually has the IQ in races George has had to recover this gap, he can fight for the championship or can fight for good finishes on days that he does not have the pace in. George Williams will come to the line this time and have 2 laps to go. Get sight. This has been a great race for him. You said the track limit warning he had at the start. It looks like he's just not looked back since that happened, and he's kept it penalty free. Well,
absolutely not. He's running about as best of a race as you can. Only on 10 seconds for corner cutting.
Oh my word!
Jumps him up to 19.
Well, he's trying to beat Ardell, maybe. Maybe trying to not have Ardell be first and something.
Here we go. Redfire taking another look and passing Night Owl. Absolutely flying.
Makes amends of him, regains a spot, reclaims a spot, retakes a spot, whatever you want to talk about there, whatever you want to call it. And speaking of taking places, how about Turbo up to 9th? I mean, it won't matter for him right there because of the track limit penalty. Gagi will get these places, but will he be getting enough places compared to what he'd be wanting to get? I mean, the gap between him and Redfire could change if Gagi is losing a lot of pace here, but I just don't know if Gagi will get Redfire or not. He's going to get 6th, maybe? Is he going to get 6th, 9th, 8th? Yeah, he could.
You're right. That's now fastest lap. There it is.
Yeah.
Just like we said.
Taking that away from whoever had it. George has had...
I think it was Danny.
Yeah. George has had 3 Imola wins in the past. F2, Tier 3, and Tier 2. He'll come to the final lap now to look for a 4th tonight. That's quite great stuff there from the man who could be and will be taking the championship lead with it. The gap was once 58 points at the front of the field.
And anyone who's taking note of how many people have penalties, all but 4. And whoever has the most penalties with that 3 second he just got, Leon overtakes Ardell for the most penalties in this race. It's
Look at that.
absolutely crazy stuff.
Down to turn 2. Fools was trying to make the move. He didn't. And there's yellow flags in the main straight, meaning no overtaking there in that DRS train. But yeah, I mean, everyone's just picking up their last penalties for this race and just hoping for it to be over. Update on the constructors, by the way. McLaren is going to outscore Mercedes, so the constructors fight does reign on. Speaking of upcoming races, we've got Qatar and Abu Dhabi to finish out the Tier 2 season.
It looks like Night Owl is going to be able to keep that 3rd place. Very impressive run for that Aston Martin right there.
It's been a championship-worthy performance for George tonight. He's going to win by quite a hefty margin, something he hasn't done this season. And in fact, he's won in Imola 3 times in the past. Once in Tier 2, once in F2, once in Tier 3. Now make it 2 in Tier 2. George Williams now takes over the championship lead after being 58 points back at one point this season over Red Fire Tiger. Lennon gets his best result of the season. 2nd place, Foles does not hang on to the podium. Night Owl in his Tier 2 debut gets onto the podium. We got a fight to the line. Who's going to trade places? Gagi does get 6th over Red Fire. That's a really good effort from qualifying bands there. Danny got 5th from a start below 15th. Wavy Knife in his McLaren return or debut, you could say, got 8th. Goatley 9th, and the last points finisher was Turbo. That now means between Red Fire and George, separating them, the gap there at the front, we've got obviously a race on our hands, but now the gap going in George's favor, I think it's what, almost 20 points.
And look at this. You saw it on the screen right there, just like qualifying. 6 different drivers finishing in the, 6 different teams finishing in the top 6.
FX7 Danny is given Driver of the Day by the game, but I'm going to actually give Driver of the Day to Night Owl. A podium on his Tier 2 debut. When's the last time we've heard that happen? He is the 84th different driver to get on podium in this tier. We had 2 drivers, 2 new drivers on the podium last week, in fact, so now make it 4 in the season. Vodka, Goatley, Danny, and now Night Owl. And
obviously,
yeah,
my driver of the day. It's easy to go for George or Night Owl. I'm just going to go with Foles here. Foles started 2nd, was able to give George, his teammate, the gap that he needed to just pull out in front of everyone and just keep it there. And he was still able to come with a decent 4th place on an Alpine, by the way. Alpine is not the best car in the world.
No,
and
definitely
he was able to sit there firmly in the top 5 all race. That's my driver of the day right there.
So I'll give you
teammate of the day.
I'll give you my contenders as we look through our final results. Gagi's a contender, not driver of the day though. Night Owl, Foles, and George are my top 3 though. I give it to probably. So yeah, you raised very good points there. Here are your top 10 results. Here are your drivers outside of the top 10 as well. We lost 4 drivers from the event: Polo God, Wooda, Zora, and Flair. And with Red Fire getting 6 points, George getting 25, that means George outscoring him by 19, making the championship gap at the front of the field 15 points. Look at how the gap has been overturned there at the front of the field in just a span of a few weeks. That's how quick things can change within a month or a little over a month. Red Fire, when George first returned to Tier 2, had a 58-point gap over him. Not over the next best guy, but over him. Now, George has come from behind and done it quite well, and looks like he's going to finish the job here soon if he can just hang on for 2 more weeks. George Williams has the most wins of any driver without a championship in Tier 2, but he's really making a name for himself. He now has 27 podiums, only 4 behind the most all-time. He got a pole today, pole to win, which I think that's the first time he did that this season. That is correct. It's the first time he's done it since his days in Tier 3 just a little bit ago too, which it's not long, but I mean, he didn't have many of those. First pole in 5 seasons for George, and also a 4th win on the season. He's only ever had 2 wins at most in a single season, coming back from Season 9 and Season 10. The last 2 times he contended for a title in Tier 2. George Williams, I have to say, you want to talk about a most improved driver, potentially, with how things have gone? We knew he probably shouldn't have been in Tier 3, but he is about to win his first Tier 2 championship, and he's been in contention multiple times in the past and come up short. He's also come up short in third place in seasons he wasn't even in contention properly. So I love what I'm seeing in terms of RPL heritage right here. You know, I'm not going to say I love what I'm seeing entirely because that's going to feel like bias on my end from the commentary standpoint. But the fact of the matter, we've had a driver Polish went from 58 points back from our championship leader to take the championship lead now with 2 races remaining. And it's a 15-point gap for good measure. That's impressive stuff. And he also had a really impressive race today, George. Not my driver of the day, but my second contender, though.
Absolutely. He absolutely was the class of the field today. And George APL Williams, that was his 9th Tier 2 victory, putting him tied for 3rd all time with JTK.
And he could also get the victory next week and have the most by a Welshman tying Jack. So that'd be a really nice sight to see. So the constructors does rain on. Mercedes ahead of McLaren, then Ferrari. They're still in contention. I think Ferrari might barely be in contention. We'll have to add up the points and figure out the stewards report. We'll tell you after, but we know for sure the top 2 are in contention still. And also, we spoke about track limit penalties, Polish. Just one more thing before we give up our final races to end off the weekend. I want to give a shout out to actually of the 4 drivers who kept it penalty free. 3 of them were on the podium. So it goes to show, you know, track limit penalties and not having them does pay off in the end.
For sure, for sure. And it was nice to see a clean race for the most part. There were not that many incidents that race, surprisingly.
No
I
VSC,
was expecting it
no
to
safety
be
car.
No safety cars at all. I was not expecting that, obviously, for Imola. Imola can get very chaotic. It's a very tight track. But that's what happens when you have 19 very good drivers out here. You don't see that many safety cars. You don't see that many incidents. The only incident I could think of was the one in qualifying. But besides that, I didn't really see many like dirty moves. You know, obviously Tier 3 has had its problems with, dirty drivers, moves being made, but Tier 2 is clearly a far cry from that. At least this race.
Yeah, I mean, it has its moments, of course. I've seen this season that happen, but I mean, it goes to show maybe with more people we have less incidents. I don't know. That's definitely a change. No VSC, no safety car today, and also Gagi, to make a point about the penalties, finished 10th on track, finished 6th on the screen at the end when the penalties were applied. So that does go to show. Again, penalties do pay a big difference in the end, and whether it's from the stewards or not. This one being on track this time with the stuff going on there. And absolutely. And one other thing to make your point made there, the whole train there, the first few laps, that was the only incidents I really saw between wheel to wheel, side by side contact, touching, anything like that. It's the only time I really saw any incidents. So good stuff, guys, I must say.
A vast majority of the incidents we saw today were really just one car spins, getting into curbs, overcorrecting, Besides that, obviously the penalties could have been cleaned up a little, but obviously it's Imola. It's a very hard track.
At least it's by themselves and not with the wall or other people.
Yes.
So with that being said, we have 2 more races to finish out the weekend. We got the streets to come. Baku for F2 tomorrow. We have a lot of news to give out there. I will probably be co-commentating with Titan there. I will not be there for the full thing. Maybe I will, I don't know. But I will not be able to stream the race due to the reason I'm missing F1 later on in the day. Las Vegas, that's where they will be at. Let's go gambling, they'll say. So, yeah, let's find out who will roll the dice there for that event. And, of course, your Polish Tier 3, they're in Brazil next week for the penultimate round. And Tier 2 for the penultimate round is in Qatar. Both championships can be wrapped up next week if the circumstances go right for George and Mercedes. That could be a different team winning the constructors compared to a different team winning the drivers. So that'll be a lot of things we pay our close attention to next week. With that being said, make sure you tune into our races, like we said, on Twitch for the remainder of the weekend and also next week, but also our uploads for full races on the YouTube or even social media posts, RPL Formula 1. In the meantime, Ryan Searles, Polish Hammer, both American, both New Yorker commentators. How about that? Both in the same states. Rare you get that when you get 2 American commentators, but we did have that tonight, so maybe I'll make a trip. No, I'm kidding. I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
anyway,
we'll see.
Yeah. Commentator meetup. I've joked about that with Titan. You're actually closer to me than Titan is, so there you go. Anyways,
Yeah, there you go.
we'll sign off for the night. Have a good one, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. If we don't see you tomorrow with you guys tuning in for F2 or F1, we'll see you next week for the Tier 2 event in Imola. Good night, folks. Ryan Searles, Polish Hammer, both signing off.